Good morning or good afternoon or good evening, wherever you may be. My name's Dave Ulrich. Welcome to our condo in the United States in Utah. The light will come on as it's morning at the time I'm recording this. My sincere thanks to Enrico for having set up this incredibly complex 4 days. I know he's worked so hard and so diligently to do this with some help from sponsors, and my great gratitude to him for what he's done. I am excited for the next 55 or so minutes to engage with you, and hopefully if you have comments or questions, you can send them in through LinkedIn chat, and I may stop once in a while and ask Enrico if he has anything that he would like to highlight that I look at. You know, the future of HR is an ever-changing world. Let me just talk about that ever-changing world. In these sessions that Enrico has done, he's captured issues around the human and the person that's not going to go away, in fact, becomes ever more critical. Technology that's incredibly changing the world and making the world different, and innovation in the world of work. As you put the person and technology together, that reshifts how we think about and how we need to do work. In my background, my graduate training and PhD many decades ago is in what's called numerical taxonomy. I did a lot of statistics around taxonomy, which is the science of simplicity. And so just to capture that in this future of work, what I think technology is all about, the second day of this conference, is about information, Internet of Things, cloud, machine learning, artificial intelligence. All of those emerging technology tools simply give us access to information in a more digital format. That's what it does, and then that changes the world. In the human world, we've got to learn to care about people, their experiences, their motivation. When I grew up in my training, the simple metaphor was organizations don't think, people do. And so if you're going to manage organizations, you've got to manage how people think. But then I go, organizations shape how people think, feel, and act. And that's kind of the new world in the future of work in a simple way. How do we build organizations in a way that helps people act better? Now, in my world, I don't want to just create events. Let's have an event, this kind of event that we're doing today. Let's have events that manage people as offsites or talks or sessions. I want to create foundational change. Well, to do that, you've got to use the HR systems. HR systems around staffing, training, development, appraisal, rewards. Guess what? That's the infrastructure that sustains change. And if you don't manage that infrastructure, change doesn't happen. So my driving question is, how do we create organizations, which I think are so critical in the world today, that deliver and sustain change? And this world of dramatic change, that's what we want to create. Now, I've just got to check with Enrico to make sure the slides are moving. And a quick yes.
They are, yes.
Outstanding. By the way, I was also checking to see if Enrico is still awake, given that it's been so many hours and unlimited 20-hour work days for him. So thank you, Enrico, and good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are.
Very awake, very awake.
So am I. So here's the question I want us to contemplate in the next 50 minutes. If HR is going to help sustain that new world of work, combining human technology into work, the issue we've got to look at is value. How much value do I create as an HR professional? And if I were to start, I'd just ask you a simple question, 1 to 10, low to high, how much value do I create? If you're watching this in a room with other people, you could simply hold up your hands and do an assessment. What could I do to add more? That's the question I want us to begin to address in the next discussion. How much value do I create as an HR professional or as a business leader? And what could I do to create more? My answer to that question has 1, 3, and 8. So I'm giving you a table of contents now. In order to create that value, there's one central idea. That's taxonomy. That's as simple as can be. There's 3 major themes or domains of activity. 3 major themes to create that value, and then 8 in those squares at the bottom of the page, 8 specific actions we could take. So 1 major idea, 3 major theme areas, and 8 actions. And having said that, that's my template, that's my menu, that's my fill in the blank chart that simplifies a very complex world about the future of HR and the value that we can create as HR professionals. So let me get into my one major idea. And I think it's an interesting one. I wish I was with you in person, and it would be fun to see what comments you get. And Enrico, I may see if you can see any comments, but if you were to take 30 seconds, top of the head, quick of mind, what's the most important thing that HR can give an employee today? As you think about this, I asked it yesterday in a group of senior business leaders in a company. They were having a senior business meeting, 180, and I said, what's the most important thing this company can give an employee today? I can't remember all of their responses, but it was a sense of purpose, fair compensation and rewards, relationships and teamwork, opportunities to learn and to grow. What great answers. And those business leaders, there were 180 people, probably 170 business leaders, same kind of answers as HR, great employee experience, great stuff. And I don't know if Enrico got any notes through the internet or through LinkedIn. Let me just see, did you get anything that came in as we let people think about this question?
I will, I think they will be coming through. There's a little delay. Oh, they're coming through now. Purpose, meaningful work, successful company where rather feel purpose, belonging. Let me see what else is coming. Trust, attention and time, confidence, career development, purpose, their respect.
That's good. That's good. That's good. That's good. By the way, I think you get the theme. Purpose, meaningful work. We did a summary of one of the trends in talent, and we said there's now a lot of people that look at talent. That's not this focus. Believe, become, belong. I like that typology. Do we believe? Do we help people believe meaningful work? Do they become better? Do they learn? Do they grow? Do we belong? Do we have trust? Do we have relationships? By the way, all of that, pat yourself on the back. Oh, that's what we give. There's a game show in the United States that probably comes from Europe called Family Feud, where you get points for having the right answer. All of the answers that just came through equal 40 points. Wow. Here's the message. The most important thing we can give a company is an organization that wins in the marketplace. Now, first of all, I've had people challenge, organizations are not just about profit. That's not how I define winning. Winning is not just winning by making money, because sometimes companies can make money and lose their heart and soul, and then they don't. Winning means winning in the social citizenship world. It means through citizenship and purpose. Winning means giving value to customers. It means giving value to investors. It means adapting to regulation. But if an organization doesn't win in the marketplace, there is no workplace. All of that great stuff you mentioned, purpose, work, believe, trust, belong, grow, in the blue box, doesn't happen unless we succeed in the marketplace. Now, when I said that yesterday to the 180 executives, they said, well, that's obvious. It's not obvious, because that changes our fundamental assumption about what we do in a company. In the United States last fall, the Business Roundtable, a group of 180 very senior CEOs, came out with a brilliant statement: purpose and people. I like the idea, but I think there's a word wrong. No, it wasn't purpose. It was profits and people. I apologize. That's the problem of being live. Profits and people. Or profits and purpose and people could go together. Took me a while to get that. It is still morning. You'll see the light come up and my brain may start. Profits and purpose. I think they're wrong. I think one word should change in that simple tagline. Profits through purpose. Profits through people. Profits through organization. You can't say on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, I'll work on profits. On Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday, I'll work on purpose and people. No, they got to be an integrated solution. And that's what HR gives a company. By integrating profits and purpose, profits and people, we begin to create a company that wins or succeeds in the marketplace. That's the assumption. One major point in yellow. HR is not about HR. But it's about helping my business, my organization, big, small, public sector, private sector, win or succeed in the marketplace. I'm not shy about that. That leads to what we've called in our HR world outside-in thinking. It's not about what we do. It's outside in thinking. It's about how does what we do in HR help my business win in the marketplace? And that marketplace, as you talked about with the last few days, if you've listened in, technology is changing it. Transparency is changing it. The pace of change is obscenely fast. As you're seeing this, if you're watching a video, we're in the middle of the coronavirus in the time when we're doing this video in March of 2020. I don't know how long that's going to last. It could last a month. It could last 6 months. It's amazing for those from the United States, and I apologize for doing that, but that's where we're rooted. Do you realize that on March 6th in the United States, it's been 1 month since the impeachment? 1 month. For those within the United States, you go, oh my gosh, I can't believe it. In that month, we've gone through a whole political cycle. We've gone through a technology cycle. We've gone through a global, not pandemic, but a global crisis. The world is changing so fast that month feels like a year. HR in that world of the marketplace has to help organizations win. So if you like that assumption, I'll move, or that premise on the yellow, I'll move on. So there's 3 domains we have to work in to make that happen if we in HR are going to add more value. One is our assumptions, the fundamental way we think. Somebody used a word, one of my colleagues, Alan Freed, in an essay he's posting on LinkedIn this week, I hope, and he said relevance. How do we become relevant? How do we become relevant to what people want? Well, it requires a mental model. How do we change our assumption about emerging HR? Then the darker blue, so what are some trends? Given those assumptions and that outside-in yellow view, what are trends in the 3 HR domains around talent, organization, and leadership? And then in the browner color, what does that mean for HR? What does that mean for how we build the right HR department? What does that mean for how we manage our HR professionals? And we're doing some research on that. We're just starting this week and this month a major, not major, we've done 30 years of research on HR competencies. We're beginning the 8th round. We hope you'll sign up. It's highlighted on LinkedIn and other places to get a free 360 as we study what's next for the HR professional. And I'll share with you some of our hypotheses. Let's go back, take a deep breath. I have one major message for the future of HR, the emerging future world, future HR in a changing world. HR is not about HR, it's helping the business win. I love to go in and ask HR people, what's your major goal today? They often miss it. It's not about purpose, work, believe, compensation, rewards, training, growth. It's about winning, succeeding in the marketplace. So now we got 3 assumptions, 3 trends, and 2 activities. I'm going to dive into the 8. Trend number 1. And for those who've heard me talk, this is one I believe for decades. By the way, one of my fears is, as one of my colleagues shared with me recently, he said, newer is often seen as gooder. Well, that's not true. Sometimes old ideas have prominence because they've been around. The most popular book in history, I was looking this up recently for a workshop, that has done over 500 million copies, is the Bible. And I'm sure the Quran is close to that. 500 million. And those are not all new ideas, but they're basic principles. Newer can be gooder, but sometimes when you build on historical good ideas and adapt and evolve them, they get powerful. So here's the first assumption. Value is not defined by what I do. It's what somebody else gets from what I do. At the end of this 1 hour, 55-minute workshop, Enrico and others might say, how was the workshop? My wife will ask me, Dave, how was this this phenomenal opportunity with Hacking HR with Enrique? I called you Enrico 3 times. I'm sorry, Enrique.
That's okay.
You can call me Donna if you want. I apologize. My sincere apologies.
Oh, don't worry about that.
I get my head filled with the ideas and I miss some stuff, so I'm really sorry. Value is defined by the receiver. It's not me that defines value, it's what somebody gets. So what happens is often in circle 1, we hear a workshop, we hear something about human or technology or work, and we say, I in circle 1 want to go change what somebody else does. Circle 3. It doesn't ever work. Not in parenting. When we had younger children at home, we as parents in circle 1 would say to our daughter, clean your room. Circle 3, we want you to do that. She would respond back, it's my room. We would respond to her, it's our house. She'd say, it's my room. It's our house. And we got into this horrible debate. And she would end up by saying, Dad, when do you leave town again? Life gets better when you're gone. That doesn't work. And it doesn't work with business people and HR people. HR in circle one, change your behavior. It's my choice. I'm the leader, but I'm the HR person. I'll hold you accountable. You change. That doesn't work. What you got to do is start in cell 4. What do you want? What matters to you? What is it that's important to you and what you do and how you do it? And then change your behavior in cell 3 so that you get what you want. That applies to people. I've just talked about it. It applies to leadership. Everybody gets all excited. Leadership is all about authenticity. Well, if authenticity in cell 1 doesn't create value for somebody else, it's not good leadership. Leadership is not what I want and what I do. It's how what I want and do helps somebody else get better. That applies to HR. It applies to an organization. It applies to a country. Values defined by the receiver. And so in HR, I should be thinking less about what I do and more about what somebody gets because of what I do. This is so obvious. We used to measure training by the percent of people who went to training and got 40 hours a week. That's not a good metric of training. Training is not what I do. It's did that 40 hours help you become better? So assumption number 2. The world is changing. What created value in the past is not what will create value in the future. And I can see the lights are coming on. So welcome to daylight in the world I'm in. Here's a very interesting test for yourself. We can do the right thing or we can do the wrong thing. We can do it well or we can do it poorly. Right, wrong, well, poorly. I'll start with the first question. What's the best cell to be in? To be honest, if you miss that question, this internet seminar is not going to be helpful to you because that question is pretty easy. I want to be in cell 1. I want to be in cell 1. I want to do the right thing and I want to do it well. More interesting to me, what's the worst cell to be in? 2, 3, or 4? 2, 3, or 4. Very often people say cell 4. If we didn't have a delay, I'd ask you to actually post. I believe the worst cell to be in is cell 2. Cell 2. We do the right thing really well, cell 1. Here's what happens. In the world we live in, the environment is changing so quickly that the right thing becomes the wrong thing. But we keep trying to do what we did well. I could apply that to almost any industry. Retail, we knew how to do big box. We knew how to pick geography. We knew how to pick location. That's the right thing. We did it well. The world's changing. In retail, it's now internet sales. It's not just big box. We got to move. We got to change the criteria. If I can find location but can't deal on the internet, I'm going to be in trouble. We got to change. In education, where we live, we used to use education as case studies. One of my pet peeves, let's learn a lot about a company we don't care about. Well, we did the right thing well. We taught case studies to business leaders who didn't have experience, and we did case studies so well. Well, now, case studies is not always the best way to teach because most business leaders have their own experience. And it's not a case study written 5 or 6 or 7 years ago. It's their experience today. So we do what we call learning solutions. Come into a workshop, tell me your challenge today around talent, leadership, organization, and let's collectively solve it. Let's learn about what you're working with. And the right thing becomes the wrong thing. And we've got to reinvent. We've got to reinvent. So the first assumption is values defined by the receiver. The second is the world's changing. What creates value today and tomorrow may in fact change as we go forward. What are some of those changes? In this session, you've had a remarkable focus on technology, and I highlight that in yellow. That's where everybody goes. The future of work is technology. I believe there's other things that are changing as well, often fueled by technology, and I said earlier, it's increasing digitization, which is increasing information and new ways to connect. But there's also social changes, urbanization in China and around the world, religious value sets and meaning, and how do we manage that diversity in a huge way? How do we respect each other's differences and still get unity? Economic changes, working across the economic cycle. In the time period when I'm doing this, we've been in an upcycle for 8 or 10 years. How do we manage in a down cycle? How do we get new technologies? Political changes, huge changes, major changes, political unrest, political uncertainty, regulatory shifts, the environmental changes around social responsibility and community, and we actually have called it social citizenship to broaden it, and obviously demographic changes of people coming into and out of the workforce. If I'm going to be good and add value in HR, I've got to define my receivers, but I've got to recognize that the changes occur. As I said, it's only been in the United States a month ago that there was impeachment, and I know folks are calling in from everywhere. I could almost go to any country in the world. Look at your calendar 5 weeks, 6 weeks, go back to the first of the year, 9 weeks ago. There is so much change and volatility and uncertainty that we almost have VUCA on hyper systems. Got to change my assumptions. Number one, in order for HR to create value, value is defined by the receiver. It's not what I do, it's what somebody gets. Number two, the world is changing. By the way, that change piece for me is so critical. I've said this for decades in my personal agenda. I do presentations, you see my slides. Some of you may have seen me present. My rule of thumb is about 20 to 25% new slides every 18 to 24 months. Now you say, well, that's obvious. Everybody does that. It's not easy. If you're in HR and you're running a leadership training program and it's 5 days, do you have 20% new material every 18 months? Are you constantly updating your insights? For me, as a personal level, just to give you an aside as we kind of pause, what that would mean is when I write books, and I've written quite a few books, it takes about a year to get the idea, about a year to write it, and then a year to get it out. The book's out after 3 years when you've had the original phenomena that you were looking at. And that cycle time is getting faster, but it's still difficult. So about 2 years ago, I've started posting on LinkedIn. And I've posted now every Tuesday morning in the United States, an original article. 1 week, a 1,200 word article, 1 week, 150 word blog. What I've learned is those articles have a half-life of about 4 days. What that means is I can see how often people read them, track them, comment on them, and I hope you will. But I love it because I write the piece Monday through Friday. I get it edited with a great editor, and I post it on Tuesday. Write, post, respond. Write, post, respond. And that's the pace of change because the business world has changed. Now, there's still room for books. I did a book last year that has a big idea that will have a half-life, I hope, of decades, not weeks. 2 assumptions. Values defined by the receiver. The world's changing. Number 3, serve all stakeholders. Serve all stakeholders. I'd love to ask HR professionals, who are your customers? Who are your customers? What I find is the following. Almost all of the time when we define our customers, we define them below the line. My customers are the employees of the company. My customers are the line managers. That's who I serve. Our view is in the creation of value, we have to have customers above the line. Doesn't mean we ignore below the line. The customers of HR, the customers of the company. Customers of HR, the investors or owners of the company. The communities, the regulators where we live and work. Our partners, since a lot of work is being done through allies. Expanding our view of customers of HR changes the way we think and act. We no longer focus on HR as an administrative utility, managing costs and processes, policies. HR's old mindset was policy police. Nor do we just focus on functional excellence in talent management, in compensation, in training. Nor do we just link HR with strategy. The traditional view was strategy is a mirror. And in that mirror, I will reflect what HR does. So HR links to strategy. Now we do what we call outside in. How do I do HR to win in the marketplace, to help my organization succeed? So I love the question, so that. What are you working on today in HR? At the University of Michigan, in our advanced executive program, we often have people, why did you come to this program? To better be able to deliver compensation rewards, develop people, manage people, build a culture, so that. Not so that we deliver strategy, so that we win in the marketplace. And instead of strategy being a mirror, it's a window. and we look through that window. You see a window in our condo to the outside world of customers, investors, communities. When HR links outside, we are more successful. Now, I won't hit all this quickly, but we're not the employer of choice. We're the employer of choice of employees our customers would choose. Our training and development efforts include customers and investors and communities to design, attend, deliver. Our reward system is linking customers into that reward. When I fly, I don't happen to have it with me, I fly a lot on Delta Airlines, and they send me coupons because I'm a frequent flyer. That's a bonus for their employees that I now control. And so last week, I got my coupons for 2020. I went into the lounge where I live, and I gave one of the employees who services me well a coupon. He was so delighted. I, the customer, now can involve him. Leadership is not just what we do. It's how what we do builds value. Culture, I'll talk about in a minute, is not just our identity and the roots of the tree. Culture is the identity we have in the minds of our customer. Culture is not the roots that are fixed. It's the leaves and branches that are growing and changing. Let me take a breath. I'll see your Enrique, and I got your name right this time. If any questions come through, but here's the message. HR is not about HR, but helping a business win. That's the future. It requires 3 new assumptions. Values defined by the receiver, that's a mental model. Who am I serving through HR? Who I serve is changing, assumption 2. And assumption 3, not only do I serve inside the company, but outside. Enrique, let me just see if anybody has comment or question, and then I'll go to the next box.
Lots of comments. Somebody saying that Southwest Airlines is doing the same thing, give the customer the ability to recognize an employee. Somebody's saying, when training on performance management, I often get asked, I am in IT supply chain, I don't impact financial results. Somebody's saying, I'm not even in HR, and I'm learning a ton from this. So somebody's saying, sustainability is key in all STEP categories.
Amen. Let me just say amen. And to the IT person, thank you. I think, well, I'm not in HR, I'm learning a ton. Thank you. Maybe someday you'll get promoted and have the privilege of working in HR. That was a joke. I hope you lift where you stand. I hope you add value. To the IT person who says, I'm in IT, I don't affect money. My answer back to you would be hogwash. What you do in IT right now with technology and all the new apps and technology, you create data that helps the organization succeed in the marketplace. So I hope that's a mindset. So I just did 3 assumptions. So given those assumptions in the future of HR, what are the trends that we've got to manage? Here's the message, and here's the metaphor. I'm sitting in a business meeting. The general manager is the integrator. We've got strategy. Finance comes in the meeting, says, how well do we manage money? Marketing comes to the meeting. How well do we manage customers? Operations, the IT, systems people. How well do we manage our systems? HR. We're invited to those meetings. In fact, I've just had some remarkable debates with colleagues who say, HR needs to get to this table. I think that's the debate from the 90s. I think that's an old debate. If your company isn't there, I'm sorry, get there soon. But I think good HR people are involved in those discussions today. They're there. What do we talk about? It's an interesting question. If I had you in person, we'd list what you said. Today, 60 to 70% of what we put up on the board would be talent. We build people, we build a workforce, we bring the human back into human resources, we manage people, we manage talent, we believe, become, belong. Those 3 agendas we make. We also believe that we manage culture, the workplace, the process. Talent matters. Culture also matters. And leadership is the connection of the 2. So in my taxonomy simplistic mind, there's 3 things we in HR manage when we come to a business discussion. And the discussion could be a formal meeting. It could be an informal discussion between HR and any of those other people at the table or discussion. Given what we're trying to do to win in the marketplace, do we have the right talent? Do we have the right organization culture? And do we have the right leadership? That's it. That's it. In that world of simplicity. Now, an interesting question. And again, it would be fun to do a test. If you look at your left hand with your fingers, that's talent. The right hand is organization. If you had to divide 10 points, which matters more? The war for talent or building a high-performing, well-connected organization or culture? Is it talent, competence, workforce, people? Is it culture, capability, workplace? We've studied that. The book, Victory Through Organization, gives away the answer. 8-2, 80-20 organization. That research is amazing because it says when we come to the table, we don't just talk about talent. We've got to talk about the organization and team and culture, and leaders are the ones that bring that together. That's true in lots of settings. I know Enrique is from Venezuela, where they have great soccer, although I'm not sure how many World Cups you've won. What percent of time is the leading player, talent, on the team that wins the World Cup? And the answer is 20%. That's true in every team sport. It's true in basketball. It's true in Australian football. It's true in hockey. 20% of the time, the leading scorer is on the team that wins the championship. It's also true in movies. And obviously, I prepared these movies. I should replace Hurt Locker with the movie that won Movie of the Year this year, the South Korean movie. And I'm sorry, I can't remember the name of it. 20% of the time, the leading actor or actress is in the movie that wins Movie of the Year. Now, sometimes I think actress is 25, actress is 15. What you get to get a leading movie is you get a great ensemble. The people come together into a great team. 80% of the time, directors are in the movie that wins Movie of the Year. It's very interesting. In HR, we come to the table, and let me go back and highlight it again. This is such a simple premise, but it's often difficult. We come to the discussion saying, I will improve talent, leadership, and organization. So with that in mind, action number 4, how do we better deliver talent? What are some of the talent innovations? And we could spend 4 full days on talent. But my job in HR is to create talent solutions that help us succeed with customers, investors in the marketplace. What are simply some of those? We have 3 major themes in colors. We improve the competence of our people. And 3 buckets. A, we bring the right people in. And again, I could go through details of what this is. Look up my work called Work Task Planning, which is where we connect technology and people. The types of employees, full-time, part-time, on contract, hiring the right people. B, we move people through. There's innovations in learning and development. In one of the sessions for ATD recently, I identified, I think, 12 trends in learning. We've got to have good accountability, performance conversations. We've got to make sure that the performance is right. We've got to manage careers. And C, we've appropriately got to remove people. Now, removing them maybe physically from the company, from their jobs, and we got to retain the best. Beverly Kay and her colleagues have done great. D, we've got to give people commitment. We've got to get people the right employee experience to connect them to investor and customer outcomes, the whole engagement world. And E, we've got to help people find a sense of contribution and meaning. That's the sense when I asked Enrique, what's a theme? He said, don't forget the human and human resources. And boy, do I agree. We did a book called Why of Work. We've summarized that into the 3 B's that I mentioned: help people believe, become, and belong, so that they feel like they're contributing. Not just commitment behaviorally showing up, but finding contribution. And again, we could go into any of those in detail. Trend number 5 in the future, we got to create the right organization. Remember, organization has 4 times the impact of talent in delivering success, not only on strategy, but to the marketplace. What does that organization look like? About 1.5 years, 2 years ago, a woman gave a talk in one of our church meetings, and she told this story, and I looked it up. It's phenomenal. About 2 years ago, or 3 years ago now, 2.5, 3 years ago, a mother is on the beach with her 8 and 10-year-old sons, and I may get a couple details wrong. Her mother is with her. So the sons run into the water, and they're caught in a riptide. I've never been in a riptide. In the group yesterday with 180 business leaders, has anyone been in a riptide? 2 or 3 of the people raised their hands. And I said, how scary was it? And the man said, I was scared to death. I'm a pretty good swimmer, but I was pulled out. I couldn't stop, and I had to consciously stop. Well, this was a man who was in the riptide at an older age. An 8 and a 10-year-old boy are scared. So immediately the mother jumps in, the grandmother jumps in, and then 3 or 4 people from shore jump in to try to save these young boys. There are now 7 or 8 people in a riptide. Within 2 to 3 minutes, and you can see here, a chain of about 80 people joined arms and saved them. Michael Phelps is the best swimmer in the history of the world, 25 or so Olympic medals. He could not have saved those 2 boys. What happened here conceptually? 80 people created an organization. And that organization had a purpose that was very clear, to save the 8 people in a riptide, and it worked. Here's the question. How do we create that organization agility in our organization today? There is a fundamental evolution of the organizational form. The hierarchy says, who's got what role? Who's got what accountability? The system says, how do we get our systems in place? The McKinsey work, the Jay Galbraith work, often called today organizational health. The capability logic that Gary Hamel and C.K. Prahalad were prominent with, and we wrote up, called Creating Organizational Capability. Now what we find is a fundamentally new organizational species and form called a market-oriented ecosystem. It goes by lots of words: the amoeba organization, the boundaryless organization, the network organization, the lattice organization. Each of those monikers have a piece of that. Arthur Young, the lead author on this book that we just published, and I looked at successful organizations today, starting with an outside-in point of view. Market-oriented. What's the market? What's the opportunity space? And then you don't just build a solution, you build an ecosystem. Each of those teams represents an opportunity in the marketplace to succeed. By the way, I hope I just whetted your appetite. Get the book. It could be another webinar. This is what I talked about yesterday with the firm. How does that company become an ecosystem focused on market opportunities so that they have the agility of this high-performing team and the stability of their organization? And finally, trend number 6, what's new about leaders and leadership? This is a forever evolving concept. We know we have to have great leaders as individuals, but we have to have great leadership as the collective. So 4 steps to doing that: build a business case for leadership. In almost every study that comes out, leadership matters. It's one of the most critical things we have to do. We believe there's a difference between leader and leadership. The leader is the individual, formal role, formal position, and informal role. Leadership is the collection of leaders embedded throughout an enterprise or organization. What makes an effective leader? Look outside, not inside. What do we want investors to say about our leaders? We did a book, I did a book actually on this one by myself, called Leadership Capital Index. Look at the quality of leaders and leadership in a company through the eyes of the investors, either the debt holders or the equity holders. What should they see more of? We also did a book called Leadership Brand with Norm Smallwood. What do we want customers to know our leaders for? Build great leadership. Invest in leaders. We were involved in studies called Top Companies for Leadership with Aon Hewitt, and I can't remember, I think it was Business Week magazine, for a number of years. What do you do to build leaders, both at work, on the job, training, experience? And finally, what can an individual do to literally be a more effective leader and to sustain leadership? We did another book on that. Build leadership. These are some of the things we've seen in leadership. I'm going to skip through that and come back to my summary page. I hope you're still with me. I know I'm covering a lot. Here's the broad question: 0 to 10, how much value do I add? One major idea: HR is not about HR, but helping the business win in the marketplace. By the way, since we have people here from IT and from manufacturing, perhaps marketing, replace HR with your function. IT is not about IT. It's not about technology. It's helping the business win. Marketing and sales. Sales is not about sales, but helping the business win. Manufacturing is not about manufacturing, but helping the business win. That's the premise. One idea. Some assumptions. Focus on value somebody gets because of what we do. Value is not what I do, it's what somebody gets. Acknowledge and appreciate the incredibly changing world. Get in my headset that what I do today is not what's necessary tomorrow. and then serve stakeholders inside the company and outside. Now, emerging trends would change depending on your function. In HR, there's 3 things we in HR bring to a business dialogue. Talent, that's people, competence, workplace. Organization, that's the culture, that's the workplace, and leaders and leadership. Whew. That's a lot of stuff on the trends for HR. Now let me go to the next 2 actions on an HR update and spend about 15 minutes on that, and hopefully that will give you a framework or a logic or a menu, is a better metaphor, of what HR in the future world might be. Before I do that, let me take a breath and stop again. Enrique, anything coming through that I might want to dive back into and spend a few more minutes on?
Well, a lot of talks about the movie of the year being Parasite.
Have you seen it?
I have not.
Neither have I. So I think you and I both have an obligation this weekend.
Some people are talking about cognitive flexibility. Well, they are talking about bringing their slides back to their teams. The human spirit always kicks in during times of need. It's a stunning example, and this goes back to some things that you were saying before. Stunning example of how humans always do the right thing under certain urgent circumstances. Let me see what else. That's pretty much what I have, like, very recent now.
Got it. That's fine.
I mean, it's difficult to scroll back up to all the comments on LinkedIn Live.
And I hope you'll follow me on LinkedIn. Don't try to connect. Unfortunately, I'm booked with connections, but if you'll follow me, you'll be able to get some of those posts and share your ideas. I'll try to respond in comments on things I posted. I hope you'll look at some of those. So what does all this mean for HR? Very simple and very tough. We have talked about the HR department, and we've written books on what's the evolution of the HR department. How do I build an HR resource? And again, by the way, if you're not in HR, if you're in IT or finance, you probably could change HR to your function. But let me now go inside HR and talk to HR people in a little more detail. We did a book called HR Champions. Do we have the right HR organization? And we designed HR around 4 squares. We did a book called HR Transformation. Are you changing that HR organization? We did a book called HR Value. Does HR as a department and as an organization create value in the marketplace? We did a book, or create value. We did a book called HR Outside In. Does HR deliver value outside the company to customers and investors? And the most recent book we did, are we creating sustainable value through the organization? There's an evolution. That evolution has led to a set of criteria. I'm just remembering what's in my slides. A set of criteria of what a good HR department should look like. It's interesting. We've just been revisiting that work. We have at our consulting firm, the RBL Group, an institute where we do think tanks. We just did a think tank last week in the United States. What are the criteria for an effective HR department? We came out with 9. Do we have the right reputation? Do we have the right customer focus? Do we have the right strategy? Do we have the right HR structure? Do we have the right ability to create capabilities? Anyway, do we have the right HR people, right HR metrics? We now think we know the criteria of what a good HR department should look like. And so we've evolved our thinking over the last 25 years from HR champions through those other ideas. At a simplistic level, and I prepared these slides before the last week discussion, I might change them a little bit. If you're building a good HR department, number 1, separate the foundational work from the strategic work. That foundational work, we got to register people for training, get people hired, pay benefits, pay salary. That foundational or essential work is absolutely critical. And increasingly on your technology day, that's being done through technology and automation. A few years ago, we would outsource that work. Today, we're insourcing it through technology. The strategic work is work that differentiates us in the marketplace through talent, leadership, and organization. We don't outsource that work, and we don't usually do that through technology. 2, make sure my organization in HR matches my business structure. If I'm a single business, one business worldwide, do not create separate centers of expertise, because there's one separate corporate staff function in staffing or training. That becomes like a professional service organization. we talk about centers of expertise. We talk in professional service organizations, accounting firms, law firms. You have experts as specialists. You have business unit HR leaders who take that expertise and make something happen. Today, there's a bit of old wine, new wine in old bottles called pooled resources. Well, that's what the centers of expertise do. They create a pool of expertise that provides a solution to the outside-in problem. Where I come out is we have to have relationships. Relationships matter. We can get all the role clarity, the centers of expertise or the new name pooled resources. We can get all the generalist or the embedded HR person, and we can clarify roles. We often do that through something called RACI, responsible, accountable, consulted, informed. And we go through a RACI exercise to make sure everybody knows their role. I've been married for over 40 years. If I say the number and get it wrong, my wife may not be happy. I think it's 44 years. Not once in 44 years have we sat down at a table, our kitchen table where I'm having this meeting, and said, okay, it's now Sunday night. This week we've got to do laundry, shop, make meals, pay taxes, do this activity. RACI, who's responsible, who's accountable, who's consulted, and who's informed. We've not done a RACI in 44 years, and we still do okay. I think good HR has got to have a good relationship. Now, we need role clarity. We need to, Mark Nyman, one of my great partners, says we need to demarble that foundational work from the strategic work. I totally agree. This is the danger of pooled resources. When you pool resources and don't demarble the administrative from the strategic work, the administrative wins out every time. Steve Covey said, the urgent overwhelms the important. So you've got to demarble that. You can't pool administrative and strategic. You've got to separate it. But RACI doesn't solve the problem. You've got to have a relationship. So we've studied relationships. My wife is an exceptional psychologist and has her PhD in psychology. We've attended workshops by John Gottman, Susan Johnson, and others who say, what makes a sustainable and enduring relationship? Here's six things from that work. I won't take you through it, but I hope your HR department has a rules or a charter of how we have a relationship. For example, the third one, manage your expectations. Here's what they found in marriage or partner relationships that endure. John Gottman, who's the scholar in this area, can interview a new relationship for 15 minutes and predict with 90 to 95% accuracy if you stay together. That's breathtaking. Here's one of the findings. 60% of the problems are not solved. And I shouldn't just say marriage. You're in a long-term committed relationship. They're managed. You know, that's very interesting. In my relationship, I like to be a little bit early, before on time, and I think Enrique is the same. I've been around him. My wife likes to arrive just in time. For the first number of years of our marriage, I go in the car and honk the horn. I'm going to tell you a secret, it didn't work. I now manage expectations. That's not so critical if I'm a minute late. It's okay. We've not resolved the problem, but we've managed the expectations. In HR, let's get clear about decision rights and let's manage our expectations. Care for others, share experience, respond to bids, etc. I come to my eighth trend, and by the way, we've just, number 7, build a competitive HR department. We've just identified 9 dimensions of an effective HR department, from foundational to functional to strategic to outside in. So we have 9 by 4, the maturity of an HR department. That's one of the things we're now testing in a fascinating way. Ultimately, all of this discussion boils down, do I have and does my company have the right HR competencies? We've done the study of this over 25, 30 years. We started in 1987. I guess that's 30 years. We've done 7 rounds of research. This is the last research in 2016 and 17. This is the study literally this week we're going live with. What does it take to be a good HR professional? And it's not just the activities that we do in these 9 buckets, and you can find that online or in the latest book, Victory Through Organization. These are the skills. We have seen an evolution of those skills in a remarkable way. Over the 7 rounds of our study, the knowledge of HR in the business has gone up dramatically, 317 to 417. Delivery of HR has gone up. Change has gone up. HR people are getting better. In fact, I get kind of frustrated when people say, in fact, an article just came out this week based on somebody who was in Davos. What if we had better HR people? And I feel like pulling my hair out and screaming, we have better HR people. Another article came out this week. HR should use analytics, and here's why analytics matters. I pull my hair out. Look at this data set, 90,000 people. We have analytics. What you're saying is, don't use analytics, use my ideas. Well, in fact, we have analytics on HR. One of the new books we just did was called Strategic Human Resource Management with Pat Wright and John Story. We have 330 references in about a 90-page book. There is data out there. Calling for more analytics without using the existing analytics is really kind of silly. It's saying I'm creating a new phone system, but I'm not going to look at the evolution of phones. We in HR have great heritage. This is the study we're doing, company signups. We're administering the survey today. I think I'm going to spend a few minutes talking about, and this is not on slides, when we do this research on what makes a good HR professional, and you see Mike Ulrich happens to be my son, PhD in business, in statistics. He now runs this survey. He's done it the last 2 rounds. He's working with Pat Wright, probably the best academic in the HR field. Has literally the Google Scholar Index is off the wall. Scott DeRue, the dean at the University of Michigan Business School, a brilliant conceptualizer. Aaron Burns from the RBL Group. Wayne Brockbank, who's been involved with me in those study over 30 years. We're advisors, and Mike, Pat, and Scott, and Aaron are really the thought leaders on this next round. We try to add 30 to 40% new questions every 5 years. What are the new things HR people should be working with? So about 3 weeks ago, when Mike was finishing up the survey and changing items and getting it right, he called and he said, Dad, I don't know if we've done enough with 20 partners around the world. We partner this, we share it. I don't know if we've done enough about pushing what's next. In that last round of the survey, for example, we found become a change agent and culture champion, be a strategic positioner, be a credible activist, and navigate paradox. We got new stuff every round, and you can see it in this chart, although it's tough to read. So we decided that Pat, Scott, Aaron, and I would think about our experience and push. What do HR people have to be able to do to be effective? Now, we want to test our ideas. We came up with 4 or 5 emerging domains, and let me just highlight a couple, because this is what we're going to test in our survey. One is social citizenship. We live in a world that is increasingly transparent. Oh, by the way, why? Because this pipeline of change is so dramatic. You've got to build social citizenship. You've got to build more citizenship and awareness of the world around you. It's not just understanding technology, it's the social citizenship, which includes the planet, obviously, social responsibility, but politics, philanthropy, investment in philanthropy, people, the Me Too movement. Some of those issues get so prevalent. We've got to be better social citizens. We've got to do a much better job with information. And I encourage you so much to look at Wayne Brockbank's work. He argues that information that comes through technology is going to be the key to our future. We found that in the last study. We find it in an ongoing way. We've got to do a better job separating signal from noise. Somebody just mentioned from Enrique's comments, cognitive flexibility. One of the things we're finding is if you have this much cognitive energy, 60 to 70, probably 70 to 80% is gone. You're dealing with all this stuff. So what do you do with the final 20% of your cognitive flexibility? In the world today, this pipeline of future of work and technology and information is creating enormous complexity. So here's the question we've got. We're going to test it. Good HR leaders should separate signal from noise. All this stuff is happening so fast. All the noise is there. You can't respond noise to noise. You get lost. That was horrible looking. How do I know in all of this pipeline of change the signals that are fundamental to my company and fundamental that I in HR and my business should pay attention to? Critical issues, social citizenship, information, learning signals from noise, anticipating change. I've talked a lot about managing change. I think now we have to anticipate change. And the one that for me is the most critical and the most powerful is moving our data and information to anticipate and deliver change from analytics through technology to guidance. In the analytics field in HR, and we all agree with analytics, data is better, we've said build a scorecard, build a dashboard. I did a book called HR Scorecard with Mark Husett. Fun book to do. Don't buy it. It's out of date. Scorecards usually report what has been. It's a dashboard of the past. Or we now have HR people saying, do predictive analytics, do insights, predict the future from the past. Great, but the future is not a linear progression, and it's not clear the outcome. Prepare interventions, find out what works. Where we want to go is impact. Do analytics that have impact, and technology enables that. Good HR technology, and I've got about one more minute, Enrique, and then I'm done, is not about the technology to do administrative work faster, but it's to build experience about guidance. Guidance is when we do HR work based on information and analytics that guides me to what the future can become. With CorpU, we are now creating an organizational guidance system that not only says, here's the competencies of business leaders, of HR professionals, the capabilities of an organization, but we can now provide guidance about which of those competencies, capabilities, talent activities will deliver the outcomes we want. When I go to a doctor, I don't want description. Hey, you need to lose weight. I got that. Hey, you got a cold. I got that. Give me a prescription and guidance. Don't just say your culture is the roots of the tree. It's what it is. It's your values. Give me guidance on the right culture. We are now building through technology and a learning system a guided model to create guidance. Get ready for it. It's coming in the next few weeks and months. Whew. Take a deep breath. 0 to 10, how much value do you add? Those is my menu of where I'm going. So, Enrique, I'm going to turn it back to you. I got your comment. That's the page, and I hope you'll follow me. Don't connect with me on LinkedIn. Okay.
Dave, one more question in the couple of minutes that we have. A very important question that somebody asked on the chat. They are saying that this sounds great, and they want to know what your thoughts are to apply all this for small to medium-sized organizations, which have more limited resources.
Actually, I'm going to take a counter view. If you're a small, medium company, before you have 50 employees, the head of HR is generally the founder, because what she or he does through talent and people is create their organization. As you move from 50 to 500, you get an HR professional. My experience is in small and medium companies, the HR professional is even more connected to the business and results. What that means is don't spend your time, if you're in a small, medium company, doing the administrative stuff. Get technology to do it. Some places in the United States have community technology resources, but your job in a small, medium company is to really deliver 4, 5, and 6, talent, leadership, and organization to help that company win. Get the administrative stuff off your plate. Our data and our experiences in small, medium enterprises, good HR people are even more strategic.
Fantastic. Dave, thank you so much.
That's it. I hope you'll follow me and check in on the Tuesday post. I've published my 100th article. I did a review of that last week. And Enrique, thank you. What a privilege to be part of a great HR community. And the best is yet ahead. That's my final comment. There's more to come. The best is yet ahead. Thank you.